Welcome to the first episode of the podcast Beyond the Double Helix with Cassandra Javier. Beyond the Double Helix will take you on an exhilarating exploration of the scientific frontiers where DNA meets imagination. Join me as we unravel the mysteries of biotechnology and genetic engineering, weaving together real-world breakthroughs and speculative science fiction concepts. From CRISPR to replicants, we bridge the gap between science and fiction, sparking curiosity and inspiring conversations about the future of life itself. For the launching of Beyond the Double Helix, I've invited two experts in biotechnology and two other experts in genetic engineering. Let's get to know them.
Hello, good day to everyone who is listening, as well as to our host. It's an honor to be here in this episode. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Princess Eusebio, together with
Kerth Matthew Mortal, and we are the biotechnologists.
Meanwhile, I am Alexis Avila, and here's my partner, Mr. Rham Salado, and we are the experts in the genetic engineering field.
I actually want to thank the experts for exerting the time to be here in this podcast to share the knowledge within the listeners. But before we dive into the complicated questions and the complicated topics concerning biotechnology and genetic engineering, why don't we start by first defining what is biotechnology and what is genetic engineering?
Biotechnology is the study of using biological process to produce new technologies and goods that are beneficial to humans. Multiple uses of biotechnology occur in many fields, including healthcare and medicine, where we produce vaccines and medicines. In agriculture, we produce fertilizers and pesticides, so the basic idea behind biotechnology is the use of biological system and living organism to accomplish certain tasks.
Genetic engineering involves altering an organism's genetic material using biotechnology techniques like CRISPR-Cas9 and recombinant DNA technology, modifying, deleting, or inserting genes into DNA.
Well, that is actually pretty easier to understand now that we have had the experts to carefully define what those terms are. The question really is, since both of those fields are tightly knit, what would you say would be the main difference between biotechnology and genetic engineering?
Biotechnology and genetic engineering are most likely connected, but the difference between them is that biotechnology produces physical products, while genetic engineering more likely focuses on DNA matter.
Thank you so much for that insight, Miss Eusebio. That actually made it pretty clear. Now, of course, like any other branch of science, there are scientists who first researched, or what we could say, the pioneers of these fields. Who would you say are the key figures in biotechnology? Are there other significant people that needs to be mentioned? What accomplishments have they done in their respective fields?
Did you know that Mr. Paul Berg, Stanley Cohen, and Herbert Boyer are one who played crucial role for the development of biotechnology? In 1972, Paul Berg published methods for constructing recombinant DNAs, which allowed genes from different organisms to be deliberately manipulated. Berg also received a half of 1980 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his landmark work in this field. Simultaneously, Stanley Cohen alongside with Herbert Boyer, they refined techniques that performed the basis for the development of recombinant DNA cloning technology in 1972 to 1974. Their work enabled cloning of individual genes, leading to the advancement in the studying organisms, drug manufacturing, and genetic modification. Cohen and Boyer's collaboration laid the foundation for the biotechnology industry.
Well, how about in genetic engineering? Who are the pioneers?
Jennifer Doudna is an American biochemist and professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Emmanuel Charpentier is a French microbiologist and biochemist. Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020 for inventing CRISPR-Cas9, a tool that can precisely edit DNA. They discovered how to use a part of bacteria's defense system to cut and modify DNA, allowing scientists to fix genetic problems, improve crops, and advance research.
Moving on to a more interesting topic that I am most curious about, and of course, I believe the listeners are also wary about knowing this. What would you say would be the contributions and the impact on society of biotechnology and genetic engineering? How did it change and how did it shape society as we know now?
Biotechnology revolutionized medicine in many ways that helps to treat, diagnose, and prevent diseases, such as vaccines, personalized medicines, treatment of genetic disorder, and many more.
Other than that, humans have transformed wild plants into diverse food crops we know today. Initially, people selected better plant materials and animals for breeding, leading to improved food crops and livestock. Agricultural technology has further enhanced food and fiber production, reducing the needs for basic farm labor. Biotechnological tools offer eco-friendly processes for industrial production, energy generation like biofuels, agriculture, biodegradation, and ecosystem restoration.
Genetic engineering has transformed personalized medicine. Gene therapy using technologies like CRISPR can treat genetic disorders by repairing faulty genes. Pharmacogenomics, which tailors drug treatments based on genetic profiles, improves patient outcomes by maximizing drug efficacy and minimizing side effects. In agriculture, genetic engineering has led to crops that are resistant to pests, diseases, and environmental stresses. Genetic engineering also tackles global challenges. Disease-resistant crops ensure food security and improve nutrition. In environmental sustainability, genetically engineered microorganisms produce biofuels and biodegradable materials, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and plastics.
Well, thank you. That actually clarified how much biotechnology and genetic engineering has impacted our lives. But since we have been mentioning CRISPR for a lot of times now, we all know that CRISPR and genetic engineering have been featured in film and television for years. The concept of altering DNA, whether for good or ill, has always fascinated audiences. In this segment, we will not only focus on one science fiction film, but in a more broader aspect. Before we dive in, let's ask the experts the basic questions. What is CRISPR?
CRISPR is a technology that lets scientists change an organism's DNA very accurately.
It is pretty obvious that CRISPR is an acronym. What does it stand for?
CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats.
Who are the notable scientists responsible for the discovery of CRISPR?
As I've mentioned about Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020 for their pioneering work in this field. Actually, in 2005, the people who first started the investigation regarding CIRSPR were Jennifer Doudna and Gillian Banfield. But later on, in 2012, because of the collaboration of Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, they were able to discover the CRISPR.
Well, it's not fiction, but we have witnessed the power of CRISPR through the documentary film entitled Human Nature that was released in 2019. If you're not familiar with it, you should definitely add it to your watch list. While not exclusively about CRISPR, various science fiction movies got in touch with it, like Gattaca, a classic film that portrays a future society where genetic engineering determines social status, and Ex Machina. Although focused on AI, it raises questions about synthetic life and genetic manipulation. What would you say would be the greatest advancement that involved CRISPR so far?
CRISPR has indeed revolutionized the field of genetics and biotechnology in numerous ways. One of the most significant advancements involving this technology is its application in the treatment of genetic disorders. Perhaps the most groundbreaking example is the use of CRISPR to treat sickle cell anemia and beta thalassemia, two severe blood disorders caused by mutations in the hemoglobin gene. Another remarkable advancement is the development of CRISPR based diagnostics, such as the Sherlock and Detector systems. These tools use CRISPR to detect the presence of specific genetic material from pathogens like viruses and bacteria quickly and accurately. This technology has proven invaluable during the COVID-19 pandemic, enabling rapid and efficient testing.
Wow, I mean, there are actually a lot of advancements concerning CRISPR, and a lot of people benefited from the discovery. No wonder they won the Nobel Prize for it. So now let's move on to the most awaited segment of every listener of this podcast, and of course, me. We will now be discussing the iconic sci fi film Blade Runner and its portrayal of genetically engineered beings or replicants. This is actually one of the famous sci fi films of all time. The classic film has a sequel of Blade Runner 2049. If you don't know it, you should definitely add it to your watch list because it features genetically engineered beings, which means that they have superior physical abilities, they can control their emotions, and they can learn things in just a snap or by simply installing a software or learning it by just clicking stuff at the back of their heads. Let's dive into the blurred lines between humanity and artificial life. This is the question that I've been meaning to ask the genetic engineers. Could we create synthetic humans with enhanced abilities?
From a scientific standpoint, the creation of synthetic humans with enhanced abilities isn't entirely out of reach. Advances in genetic engineering and biotechnology have already demonstrated the potential for modifying human genes to enhance physical and cognitive traits. For example, the CRISPR-Cas9 allows scientists to make precise modifications to an organism's DNA.
Since you yourself have said that it's not theoretically impossible, in the movie, Nexus 6 replicants possess superior physical abilities. Hypothetically, if we were to engineer similar enhancements in humans, what genetic modifications would be required?
Well, when we talk about enhancing human abilities, we could theoretically engineer individuals to possess superior strength, endurance, and heck, even intelligence. To achieve enhanced physical abilities similar to the Nexus 6 replicants, we would need to focus on several key modifications. For instance, we could look at genes involved in muscle growth, like myostatin. Myostatin acts as a brake on muscle growth, and by reducing its activity through gene editing, we could significantly increase muscle mass and strength. On the cognitive side, enhancing mental abilities could involve targeting genes associated with neuroplasticity, learning, and memory. For example, increasing the expression of the BDNF or the brain derived neurotrophic factor gene could enhance cognitive function, as this BDNF plays a critical role in the growth and differentiation of new neurons and synapses.
While those modifications are highly interesting, the Tyrell Corporation designs replicants with specific traits. It raises the question, how do these concepts align with real world genetic engineering? More importantly, what ethical considerations arise when creating customized organisms?
In the real world genetic engineering, we are already capable of modifying organisms to exhibit specific traits. In medicine, gene therapy has shown promise in treating genetic disorders by correcting the faulty genes. For example, in diseases like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia, researchers are working on ways to replace or repair the defective genes responsible for these conditions. And this approach has the potential to provide long term cures rather than just managing symptoms. And when talking about ethical considerations, it is substantial and complicated. First and foremost, there's the issue of consent. When it comes to genetic modification in embryos or future generations, the individuals affected cannot provide consent to these changes. This raises significant moral questions about autonomy and the rights of the unborn. There's also the issue of equity and access. Enhanced abilities could create a new form of inequality if only a privileged few have access to genetic modifications. This could worsen social divides and lead to a society where genetic enhancements are a marker of socio-economic status, potentially creating a new class of genetically privileged individuals. And unintended consequences are another critical concern. Our understanding of genetics is still evolving, and modifying one trait could have unforeseen effects on others. For example, a change intended to enhance intelligence could inadvertently affect other aspects of development, leading to a new health issues or behavioral problems. Moreover, there's the fundamental question of what it means to be human. If we start designing and creating beings with superior abilities, how do we define their rights and status in society? Would they be considered fully human or something else?
In conclusion, biotechnology is the study of using biological processes for beneficial technologies that intersects with genetic engineering, a field that modifies DNA using techniques like CRISPR-Cas9. Pioneers like Paul Berg, Stanley Cohen, and Herbert Boyer laid the foundation for these advancements. Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier received the Nobel Prize for their groundbreaking work on CRISPR. In pop culture, CRISPR captivates audiences through film and TV, while in reality it revolutionizes genetics and biotechnology. CRISPR treats genetic disorders, enhances diagnostics, aids cancer research, and even raises ethical considerations related to consent, equity, and unintended consequences. Real world applications of these two fields prompt questions about autonomy and its access. I highly encourage everyone to explore further and learn more about biotechnology and genetic engineering because, quite frankly, Blade Runner could be our future. Again, thank you for the experts, Ms. Eusebio, Mr. Mortal, Mr. Avila, and Mr. Salado for sharing what they know about their respective fields. You have now reached the end of the podcast Beyond the Double Helix with Cassandra, where we discover how sci-fi imaginations intersect with reality. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts to stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, never forget to look beyond the double helix. Goodbye.